All right, today I'm in London with David Nicholson. Thanks very much for giving some of your time up, David, to talk to us.
No problem.
I've been really looking forward to this because I'm totally clueless as well. So basically, you're a very busy chap. Crypto casino, European bookmaker, launching stuff in Africa. I mean, what we're going to talk about all that in a bit, but what would you describe your profession as?
I would describe myself as a gambling industry entrepreneur, as dreary as that sounds.
Okay, so but first and foremost, when we talked, well, we sort of corresponded before we did this, you described yourself as a lifetime gambler. So when did that lifetime in gambling begin and where did it all start?
So I've been gambling pretty much my entire adult or mid-adult life. I started playing poker with my friends at school, like 15, 16. Really got into it. My parents were both very anti-gambling, but my grandma was like a big gambler. So I think it like sort of skipped down a generation. But when I was about 17, I met two guys, Jamie Sykes and Ash Mason, who are still two of my best friends to this day. And we were playing in a card room behind a snooker club in Harrogate. And that was my first taste of like what I would call like gritty, kind of like spit and sawdust gambling. You know, every Friday and Sunday, like poker tournament, little cash games on the side, sit and goes, people of all different kinds of age and background. So that's when I really got into gambling there through poker.
And you were winning money?
Not really, no. I mean, I was not losing money, which is kind of a big achievement, I think. Or as good as you could do back then.
And you say your grandma was a big gambler. In what way?
Horses. Love the horses. Both my parents didn't like it, don't like it at all, and they were massively against me gambling, but my grandma, who's obviously died, unfortunately, way before I became a professional gambler, I think she would have been loving it, watching what I went on to do.
So when you became a professional gambler, was it a professional poker player?
Yeah. I left school. When I left school, I started working for a guy whose business was buying and selling like distressed restaurants. Straight out of school at 18, doing this. And he himself was actually a massive gambler as well, horses, surrounded by like gambling people, always went to the races, would be late for meetings because he was like sweating the 110 at Plumpton on his phone. And then I kept playing poker with Ash and Jamie mostly, who were doing it professionally. And I stayed involved with it. And then after about 2 years of working, the business got sold. I had a small payout and I was kind of like, I'll just hang out with Jamie and Ash basically. And, you know, they go off to Walsall to play the GUKPT or they go to Nottingham to play the DTD 300 and it was kind of a good laugh. And then from that moment, 5 years later, I'm still playing poker and I'd never do anything else.
And it sort of rose off the tongue that you're a professional poker player. Well, lots of people play poker, it's very popular, but not many of them are good enough to become professionals. So, I mean, were you like somebody that reads loads of books? Did you learn online? Did your friends teach you? Or was it natural aptitude?
Well, it's definitely important to distinguish between being a professional poker player now and trying to be a professional poker player 15 years ago when I started. I mean, it's completely different now. I don't want to say it was easy, but it wasn't hard to win 15, 12 years ago. I never read any books or really did any training or study or anything, but I would always talk to my friends who were all better players than me. You know, what would you have done with this hand here? What would you have done with that hand there? And the quality of the competition just wasn't really that high. So, you know, I never like scaled poker into anything that made me a load of money, but I always got by. Like all I needed to do was just to win enough money for another month of jollying about, drinking and traveling with my friends. And that was me pretty happy really. So.
Yeah, but that jollying about and drinking was in Las Vegas, wasn't it?
We did a lot of time in Vegas, yeah. Did 8 trips, ranging between 6 and 12 weeks from maybe 2011 to 2013. Yeah, it was a lot of, it was a lot of fun.
And what goes on in Vegas? Stay in Vegas, or can you tell us a few stories?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some fairly well-known incidents over the years. Probably the most well-known incident was when my friend Matt Perrins, he won a bracelet. I think this is 2013. I think it's definitely towards the end of my Vegas bulldozing. He won I think it was a $5,000 no limit event, and he was heads up against a guy called Arthur Pro, a recreational player, who had he had a home game. I can't remember where he was from. They had a home game. Maybe there's 8 of them. They all put in enough money to make up the 5,000, and whoever won it went to Vegas to play this event, and the rest of them, they all got an equal share of 50%, and he got 50%. He came second. I can't remember the amounts. Maybe 400,000 he won, and Matt won 700 or 750. And we all went out afterwards together, including Arthur Pro and a load of his friends who've obviously made all this money, which they weren't expecting. And then there's a kind of like lengthy blank. And then the next thing I remember, we're on the top of the Mirage Fountains, where we've been persuaded to jump in by any sort of mischievous members of the group. Me and Matt and I think another couple of people. We get out of the Mirage Fountains and police sirens. And I'm thinking, well, we're banged to rights really, aren't we? Like, they know that someone's been in the fountains. We're stood here dripping wet. There'll probably be a $70 fine or whatever, and we'd be on our way. But then Pez decides that we should run. So he just goes, run, all of a sudden. And I'm thinking, well, run feels like a terrible idea, but everybody else is running, so, why the hell not? We ended up getting tackled to the ground. I got watched Pez get pepper sprayed by a very large policewoman. Brought back down, fined, I think, $300 for... I think the actual fine was for play fighting in a public water feature. I mean, there was just loads of nonsense shenanigans like that where we just got into all sorts of silly trouble, mostly through drinking too much or overexcitement.
So is it vulgar to talk about money? I mean, did you come home with more money than you went with after your furore out there?
Well, I did 8 trips to Vegas, and I did 2 in the spring, which what they call March Madness. It's where they all bet on the basketball, so it's very, very busy. I did 3 in the summer for the World Series, where everybody, all my friends, there must have been 100 people I knew would go out, typically for the whole summer as well. And then we did 3 in the autumn, somewhere between Halloween and the 5 Diamond tournament, which was the start of December. And I won all 5 non-summer trips, or maybe one trip was a small loss where I played a really big game and lost. And then I lost significantly in every summer. I think minus 40% bankroll was maybe my best ever summer performance in Vegas, because I just wasn't ready for how, everybody there, temptation around every corner. Vegas will drag it out of you. If you've got any sort of demon at all, Vegas will get it out of you one way or another. So when I went by myself, I did well, calm, peaceful. When I went with my friends, I just had absolutely no chance.
And do we assume that, apart from what we've already said about the restaurant game, you've not had a proper job? Have you just gone straight headlong into this gambling? Yeah,
I had the job at the start. I very briefly did some freelance waitering, mid-20s when things went a little awry. But yeah, apart from that, I've been working for myself the whole time.
Okay, so did you actually came back with some money to bankroll you after these, or did you just have a lot of fun and spend it?
I won money at poker overall, accumulatively, from my trips to Vegas, but brought home really very little of it, and I probably span it off whatever I came back with pretty quickly as well.
Okay, you said you retired from professional poker, so why did you make that decision?
Well, it was about mid-20s. I'd noticed that there was a shift coming in the way that poker was. I'd always done quite well on the internet, and I felt like quite well respected. People didn't typically sort of seek me out to play against me. You know, I could sit on a table by myself. You know, not always, but sometimes. So I felt like there was a fair amount of respect for me for the competition, and I knew some players were better and some players were worse, and I felt like I had a good handle on why that was. And then I kind of remember the day, like one day I woke up and was just like, yeah, I'm finished. Like they're all better than me now. Like I have to move down, or you know, really study. Solvers were just starting to come out. Like people were just starting to think about solving poker from like game theory and stuff. And
So can you elaborate on what that is for people that like me that don't know?
well, I mean, I know precious little as well, but game theory started to really come into poker, where very clever people were starting to solve various aspects of the game mathematically. And, you know, I have enormous respect for the solver people, for the people that have designed this software, that have learnt this stuff. But I knew instinctively, like, this wasn't going to be for me. Like, I'm not going to be the guy that studies all these different poker spots or hands, or learns how to use all these different bits of software. You know, for me, it was always more like, there was a lot of fun to it, and the minute it became like a maths exam, I was out, basically. So I went from doing okay at poker to quit very quickly, actually. You know.
So would you be playing against bots, basically, or sort of semi-bots? Is that how it was working?
Well, there was actually, in my last few months, actually, there was a big like bot scandal on the site that I played on, where some Russian crew put in a load of bots that won a load of money, and I think I lost quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, mostly just this. I mean, that's obviously bad, is the bots, but for the most part, I think the quality of competition just got a lot better, a lot quicker. And I met a lot of these guys, you know, in the coming years when I was more recreationally involved in poker, and a lot of them were like, they were just sort of 19-year-olds from like Latvia who were dedicating themselves to it, like really, really dedicated to becoming great players. And you know, you have to know when you beat sometimes, and I just had no chance against those guys. So probably the part of my poker career I'm most proud of is that I smelt when the game was up way quicker than I thought I would.
Right, so we're going to briefly talk about the restaurateur business that you went headlong into after you gave up poker, is that right?
Yeah, quit poker to become a restaurateur. It was, well, I mean, it was depends how you define it. Financially, it was a total catastrophe. I mean, I lost all my money, pretty much. I made lots of silly mistakes. But I learned a lot of good lessons about life and business and things that I wasn't sort of planning to learn at that stage.
How old were you then?
20, just turned 25. So we opened I bought a fish and chip takeaway and then put a restaurant alongside it. You know, tried to sort of fancy it up, make it all like tapas and gins and all this kind of stuff. It was a real disaster. Actually, it went terribly, but you know, it's character building. I also met my future wife from being involved in restaurants again, so that was obviously could never be a disaster because of that.